there's this line that I've been working around and I've been going around telling people because I'm so proud that I came up with it, which is clarity is love in practical form.
That line alone is basically the reason I wanted to have this conversation. Hi friends, welcome back to the Cripple Chronicles podcast. Today's episode is my first guest episode and I am sitting down with Jermaine E, the founder of HeirLight. And just a little quick disclaimer before we go any further, this episode is not legal advice. This is just two people having an honest conversation about the stuff that most of us avoid. So let's get into it. If you are new here, welcome. My name is Becca and this is a podcast where we talk about disability, recovery, identity and the weird emotional stuff that nobody really prepares you for. And I guess the practical bits that get heavy pretty fast. If you're returning, welcome back. Are you sick of me explaining who I am every episode? Oh well, I'm still going to do it because it's my podcast and I make the rules. Today is a little milestone for me because this is my first ever guest episode and like I said, I am joined by Jermaine E. Jermaine describes himself as a founder and as a storyteller, and you'll hear that immediately because the conversation isn't just, here's a company I built, it's about what we leave behind, why we avoid certain conversations, and how grief, family, money, and time all get tangled up together. Jermaine is the founder of HeirLight, which is a guided will-making platform. The whole point of it is to take something that people usually avoid, like wills and legacy planning, and make it feel a bit calmer and more human. Their approach is basically a guided conversation that helps you organise the details instead of it feeling like you need to sit down with a stranger and spill your whole life story in one go. We talk a bit about the AI side of it too, and what certain guardrails can look like when the goal is to reduce chaos, not just generate random text and hope for the best. And again, just to be super clear up front, this conversation is not sponsored, it's not an advert, and like I said, it is not legal advice. HeirLight is the reason Jermaine and I ended up sitting down together, but the conversation goes way beyond an app itself. Also because I realise a lot of my listeners are in the UK or elsewhere in the world, we do touch on the fact that laws can vary a lot depending on where you live, and even in the US it can vary state to state. So take this as a conversation that might get your brain turning and start some conversations, but it's not a you need to go and start planning your will kind of situation. Okay, let's stop me yapping and get into this conversation with Jermaine, the founder of HeirLight. You described yourself in your bio as a founder and a storyteller. I think founder, people think hustler, but with HeirLight, before we kind of get into it, what story are you trying to tell with the work you're doing at the moment?
Yeah, I think a founder it should almost always be a storyteller, because if you start something, there should be a reason why you're starting. Yeah. There's not always a reason. And the reason can sometimes be vain. It can just be money, for many people. But for me, it's always been because I was never one to fit into a mold of getting a job. When I was graduating from university, I realized that I was always either underqualified or overqualified for the jobs I want. And so I was forced into being an entrepreneur to create the things that I want. And so because of that, I have had to be creative. And I think that's where the storyteller comes in. It's to create a story about what am I building, what am I doing it for, the why. And yeah, I actually don't. I am a workaholic, but I don't think being a founder equates to the hustle. Yeah.
I think I've not really spoke to kind of a lot of entrepreneurs or anything like that, so I guess I'm kind of coming from it from a less knowledgeable sense. So I would kind of think like starting your own business is a lot of work to kind of go into it, and obviously takes quite a bit of sacrifice to get there in terms of it, I guess.
Yeah. So I'll be honest, like when I was in my 20s, I was definitely chasing recognition, money, and I think the validation
Yeah.
of all the things, the people around me, and I want to be featured in magazines and the Forbes 30 and the 30s and things like that. But as I get older, though, I do feel like I am more mission aligned. And I would say HeirLight is the most mission aligned that I've ever been. It's an extension of myself, and we can talk about that later. But as I get older, I just understand better who I am as a person and what matters to me. And so I love my Mondays just as much as my Fridays. I look forward to building and getting work done. And sometimes things get tough. As you know, like HeirLight is in a legal space, so I'm inviting legal challenges into my life essentially. And but
Definitely.
it's all part of the mission.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a big important thing when I started doing the podcast. Very much of it was like, I don't care if it gets one view or 100 view, it kind of finds the people that it needs to. And that's the one thing that's kind of kept me going, because I think if I was doing it for the views or like the subscribers, I probably would have lost the motivation, but it's more the meaning behind it. And I think that's what kind of drew me to wanting to have the conversation. Like I said, I'm not big on if I can't try something out, and even though I've got a small platform, I'd want to try it out, but it's good to have the conversations that start the meaning behind the app or whatever like your mission is, basically. Before we go on to that, I do want to just ask a little bit about your upbringing. So you had said you were born in LA and raised between LA and Malaysia, or the other way around. How did that shape your kind of sense of belonging, and what kind of values did you absorb from your upbringing?
Well, the truth is, I never thought of the question belonging until I'm much older. So I am, by definition, American, Malaysian, Chinese.
Okay.
And for the audience and for anybody who doesn't know what that means, welcome to majority of people. So
Yeah.
what that kind of means is I don't belong, I'm not the majority anywhere.
Okay.
Right? So there is no place in the world that I go to where I feel like the majority.
Okay.
And I'll elaborate on that. So I went to China twice last year. And of course, a true Chinese person would talk to me and realize I'm not Chinese at all.
Okay.
I speak Mandarin, but the values and the way I think and even the accent that I have speaking Mandarin is completely different. I go to Malaysia. My friends see me as the American kid.
Okay.
And I'm in the US. Well, it's quite cool to be Asian American now, in mainstream media. But it's never been this way. It's always been like we're like the model minority, the minority people that are always doing well in business and school because of different values and family and things like that. So, yeah, so for most of my life, I've never been the majority, which means the concept of belonging lies within my family. It's like it was on my parents to make me feel like I belonged. And I think they did a great job because I never questioned it.
I think, especially kind of thinking about not being the majority kind of anywhere you go, I think it would be, without a good like family around you, it would be very hard to feel like you don't fit in anywhere. So I do think that's like a really positive thing to hear.
Yeah, I think a big part of it that I've learned recently, my mom passed away 6 months ago. For a very long time, I was searching for the answer to why do bad things happen to good people? Right. And And I went through a phase, all the stages of griefs. And what I realized is the more I try to assign a judgment to the situation, the more I'm annoyed, the more I suffer internally. And nobody's feeling sorry for me. I mean, of course, my friends do. And, I receive the kind words and condolences. But at the end of the day, I have to face myself and say, it really sucks that my mom passed and she was only 61. But if I spent all my energy trying to understand why versus accepting it, just because that is life, and to take what she gave me, which is everything in my 34 years of being, and do the best that I can with it. And that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, definitely. It's like you kind of brought that up at the perfect time, because I was going to say that's kind of the heart of it, is your mum and kind of conversations with her with how HeirLight became what it did. So I definitely relate with kind of trying to figure out the why behind things. Initially, in the beginning years of my recovery, it was just horrible, and I couldn't begin to put a name to things or understand them. But as time goes on, it's one of those where I do kind of just realise more and more what I'm capable of instead of what I can't do. And I think a lot of people say about grief, it's a lot harder when it's somebody that's had such an impact on your life, because there's a lot of things that you would want them to be here, and especially kind of passing away quite young, that must be difficult as well. With your mum, what were the conversations that had happened between you and her that kind of basically became the backbone of HeirLight? If you tell me a bit more about your mum as well, just because I think that would be nice to know.
Yeah. So my mom and I, in fact, my entire family, were very close. Our family group chat is constantly going because of all the different time zones we're in. And about a year ago now, I had a conversation with my parents about retirement. And the conversation really stems from the fact that I would like to travel with them a little bit more. And selfishly, I'd like to do that before I start a family and have kids. So what I realized was that there was a underlying fear or uncertainty of running out of money before they die. And this is something it's not because that they don't have enough, or it's not because they don't have savings or anything like that. It's just that on our day to day, we don't sit down and slow down and think about how does what we have translates to living a full life and living intentionally. There's this story of people who spend all their life digging the well for water all the way to the end of their life, and they're still thirsty because they forgot to drink the water and they keep digging, right? I think one of the biggest things that get overlooked is that not everyone is trying to optimize for wealth. A lot of people are just trying to avoid chaos and uncertainty. And so this conversation with my parents made me realize that I needed to find a way to remember all the things that they have and the relationships that matter to them. And from there, a few months later, I decided that if I had this information, I was able to create a estate plan for them, essentially a will.
Yeah.
So I do want to say, though, that wills, estate plans are different country to country.
Yes.
And state to state. Even in the US, all 50 states have different laws. And so it's one of those things where we're not trying to solve it for everybody, but we're trying to give people the option of having a friendly design conversation.
Yeah.
And let's just put it in a way that is sometimes a little scary to people. We do have an AI powered engine behind it, which means you're talking to a very intelligent AI without the ego behind it.
Yeah.
So a lot of people avoid this conversation because they don't want to talk to a complete stranger, an attorney, about their most precious things, their most private and sensitive information.
Yeah, I'm guessing using AI can be helpful, especially with different laws, state to state as well, kind of having more of an idea of what might be applicable and what might not be.
Yeah. So, I mean, in a very simple terms, the biggest difference between an app like ours, and I'll speak for my own because I don't know about the others, but between ours and ChatGPT, let's say, is that when you use ChatGPT, you ask it for a prompt and it will do its best to give you all the answers, regardless if it's true.
Yes.
Right. So for us, the biggest difference is that we are guardrailed. So we are trained based on the law of your state.
Okay.
And our AI will push back and say, you actually, to do this task, I need more information. To complete this task, you have to provide me with these information so that we can draft something. And so it has all the resistance and all the guardrails in place so that it doesn't just draft anything that is may not be legally valid.
Yeah, I think that's something that's really helpful to know, because I'd had a contact from somebody, and it was an AI companion for helping to deal with grief. And it was something where it just set off alarm bells to me, because I've got a background in mental health, so I've heard a lot about AI psychosis and kind of models like ChatGPT affirming kind of negative delusions and things like that. So knowing there is a way to kind of put guardrails in place and be able to, I think as well, that's another thing that frustrates me about AI is you ask it to do something and it's like, yep, okay, and then it comes back with the not really what you're asking for, and you're like, well, could you do this? Oh, but I need this extra information. And it's like, oh, if I just knew that initially, I would have given you, instead of 15 minutes later being here and realising I need to give you something else to work with.
Yeah, and AI is not created equal. So AI is always growing, it's always training. And I think what we often forget is that the AI can only do as good as the input that we give them. Right? So if we tell them the input and the guardrails that we want it to have, it can act in a way that we need it to be helpful. But I think most people are not trained on it. And so it is a dangerous game.
Yeah.
I do actually have a friend who's building an app to help with anxiety.
Okay.
And it's essentially I think it's what is that term in psychology? It's a cognitive
behavioral therapy.
It's a cognitive behavioral line of therapy. And they have some positive affirmations and things like that, and helping people, figure out and to essentially they're there to do the therapist's job based on the therapist's prescription.
Yeah, I think with CBT, it's something where it's usually there's pretty normalized ways of where you can go, so it's something that kind of works out quite well. But I've heard a lot of people of like using ChatGPT as therapists, and it just bad vibes.
Mm-hmm. I have a lot of empathy for it because I think people use what they have access to. And I think sometimes when times are tough, ChatGPT can feel like a very good companion.
Yeah, definitely. I actually work with young people, and I'd went to like a conference where they spoke about AI and kind of the impacts, and it's like so many young people are using it now, and I can get it because like when I was a teenager, like the internet felt a bit more safer than it is now, not as accessible to loads of other people, so I can get maybe wanting to speak to somebody that's not a person, and it does feel less intimidating at times. With your mum, I kind of wanted to go back to that. I'd thought of a question. Since her passing, what has changed in how you think about time, legacy, and the kind of conversations that are easy to avoid due to anxiety?
I'll take the middle part of the question, which is legacy. So I have always been someone with big ambition, and I always wanted to build things that outlast me and helps as many people as possible. I believe it's equally altruistic and equally ego-driven. I do enjoy the admiration. I think what my mom's death brought to light was that we come into this world and then we leave, and in 2 generations, nobody will remember our names. And to put all that into context, it's like, I guess, why are we taking life so seriously? Because I take life very seriously. In fact, my partner will say sometimes that I don't know how to have fun, and
Fair.
but I don't know if that's true. Maybe it is. She's always right. So, um, but I think one thing that I started adjusting is to learn how to be present more often and learn how to say no when I am too
Yes.
busy. Because I am someone who doesn't like conflict. I like a harmony in everything and everybody around me. And I think my mom's passing made me realize that, we're here for a pretty short time. There's no reason to do things that we don't want to do for too many days in a row. Sometimes it's required. And on the other side, though, a lot of people came up to me at her funeral and after that told me all the good things that she's done for them. And, I wish they told her while she was alive. And so, in some ways, I think we should also remember to say the kind words to the people that, whenever it comes to mind, we should just do it.
Yeah, that was definitely something I kind of learned after my accident was now, like, I probably before wasn't very affectionate, but like I'll just be like, say to my friends like, oh, I love you, I'm really proud of you for X, Y, and Z, because I would hate for something to happen and know that I hadn't told them that when I had the chance. So I do think that is a really kind of important thing to take away from it, even though it's shitty at times, the grief and everything that kind of comes with it. What is something that, if there's somebody that's thinking about wills or anything like that, what is kind of one easy thing that they could go away and do to start that's not as daunting as calling a solicitor or even thinking about writing out a will?
So, for most places, if you have something typed up and printed and signed with witnesses and notary, the court will take it.
Okay.
As that's a very dangerous general advice because it does differ.
Yeah.
So, however, on the mental side of it, I do think journaling, keeping a journal of people that matter to you and things, the stories about things that you own, it's a good place to start.
Yeah, definitely.
The more practical things are, if you have a bank account, make sure that there's a name on the beneficiary. If you have a retirement account, for example, or insurance, there is a beneficiary that a lot of people don't set. Yeah. And so these are the little practical steps. But I think to get into the mindset of it is think of it less of death. Think of it more as organizing. Yeah. I'm just organizing so that I know exactly where things are and what I have. And so that when you do feel ready, the process is less chaotic because you have a place where you can go back and reference.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's pretty solid advice. And even about the the bank accounts, that's something that I wouldn't have even thought about. So it's something that I've learned from it. So is there anything else that, I don't know, you would like to share, that anything else on your mind? I've not really got any other questions or anything.
Yeah, I have to admit that when I was thinking about coming on to chat with you, I was very uncertain about a few topics, as I mentioned to you. Yes. And I said, because I don't want to seem like I'm teaching resilience. That's definitely not true. Yeah. I think I'm here to talk more about preparation, about dignity, and just reducing uncertainties in your life. We all can do a little bit better at that. So there's this line that I've been working around and I've been going around telling people because I'm so proud that I came up with it, which is clarity is love in practical form.
I like that.
And so if it's like this love languages, right? If you can help someone you love have a little bit more clarity by just having conversations, and that's very, very helpful.
Definitely, that's something I've noticed. You can do a lot of healing alone, but I think a majority of healing happens in community and having people around you where you know it's safe to just be whatever version and share whatever's on your mind.
Hmm. Yeah, and the other thing is also, I realize we have actually a lot of time. The thing is that because if we're not intentional, time goes by very quickly and we forget that actually we do a lot every day. But, people often say, oh, time flies. But actually, it's not because time flies, it's because we forget a lot of it.
Yeah.
We do so much. And so when we start thinking about it that way, we hopefully can live with a little bit more intention and be clearer to choose the things that we want to spend our time on. And that would help a lot.
I think kind of taking minutes or time to be present, whether that's like an hour out of your week or 10 minutes at the end of the day to kind of take maybe a gratitude journal or go out in nature and kind of just listen to the sounds around me. And it is one of those things that slows everything down for a minute and stops everything feeling like it's just going 100 miles an hour.
For the last 10 years, I have journaled consistently. And the first question I always ask myself in the journal is in detail and very specifically, what am I grateful for in the moment? I do that because I don't want to brush it off as like, oh, I'm grateful for sunshine and, the easy out. Since my mom's passing, for the first 4 months, I wasn't able to answer that question. I found it really difficult to be grateful for everything else when it feels like the person that was most certain in my life, my whole life, is gone. It took me a while to come around. And I think it is a process. I still open the book, put down the date, and I still try to write something. And finally, I think I've come around just in the last month or so because I do realize that in grief, sometimes I do forget to appreciate the people who are still here, who are still healthy. My dad. So now all my energy goes to my dad. Yeah, I think that I know it's been said a million times in all different ways, but it's just about showing up the next day and doing it again and again until you forget that showing up requires a choice. You just do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I've really learned in the last few months.
Definitely. I think when grieving, it can feel like there's a thick cloud where it is hard to be grateful or even articulate what you're feeling because it's just everywhere. So I can totally get that, but it's unfortunately one of those things that it takes time, and even then I don't think it gets any easier. I think it just something happens along the way where we're able to cope with it.
I mean, as you can see with HeirLight, what helped me is to put myself in a bigger mission and a mission to help others. I think when you realize that you have something to give to the world, as you do, Becca, you created a platform to share stories, and however big or small the audience is, we all receive messages differently.
Yeah,
It's like I've heard the same stories 1,000 times, and it's like the 997th time that it hit me.
Yeah.
And you never know when somebody needs a reminder. And admittedly, some days when I'm doing podcasting, I feel like I'm telling the same stories again. But I'm fully aware that for me and for most people, it depends more when the story arrives in someone's life that makes the biggest difference. And so I applaud you, and I think you should keep going.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. I think I'm excited about what's coming this year. I've got a few different people that I'm kind of setting things up with, and more kind of conversations. It's not just me, but yeah, I definitely get that. Sometimes I'm like, have I said this before? Have I not? Oh well, it relates to this anyway, so I'm going to tell you again. And if you've heard it already, then tough.
If you've heard it already, tell me if I said it better.
Yeah.
If you've heard 4 versions of the same story, maybe you can comment down below and let me know.
Yeah, tell me what episode I'm repeating myself from.
Yeah, yeah, or tell me, was the punchline good? Should I have added a little bit more hype or a little bit more intonation into it? So, yeah, I think anybody who's out there doing what you're doing and doing what I'm doing, if that person, it was a Teddy Roosevelt quote, right? The man in the arena. If someone's in the arena doing what you're doing, they will have nothing but respect.
Yes, definitely. Well, thank you very much. This has been a lovely wee chat, and thank you for being the first guest on the Cripple Chronicles. Hopefully, we can maybe have a sit down and chat some other time, see how things are going, but it would be lovely to chat with you again because I've really enjoyed this, to be honest.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be the first guest.
Thank you very much. I am going to go because it's getting late here and going to cuddle my cats.
Okay, sounds good. Have a good evening.
Thanks very much. See you later. As you can tell from the end of that conversation, I really loved that. A very big thank you to Jermaine for being my first guest on the Cripple Chronicles, as I said to him, and for being so open, especially when we touched on topics like grief, family, and how your whole view can change when life just smacks you in the face. There were a few moments from this that really stayed with me. Obviously, clarity is love in practical form. That is something that is probably going to live in my head rent-free, because I actually said the other day, I think one of my main love languages is understanding and in turn being understood. Like, it just makes me feel so happy. So clarity being love in practical form is just so true. A lot of love isn't big dramatic speeches. A lot of love is practical. It's organising, it's making things easier for the people you care about, it's reducing that uncertainty where you can. And I also liked how we spoke about starting small, not in an overwhelming fix your whole life today way, but in a genuinely doable way. Journaling who matters to you, noting down what you have, where things are, the stories behind the things that you have, checking beneficiaries on your accounts, just organising your life admin so that if you ever do want to take the bigger steps, you're not starting from a place of chaos where you don't even know where to look. You've got a starting point, and I think sometimes, especially for me, that's the hardest part. I didn't say it during the conversation, so I just want to be very clear one more time. This episode is not legal advice. It is two humans having a conversation, sharing stories, and hopefully making a scary topic feel a bit less scary. If you need proper legal guidance, please speak to a qualified professional in your area, because as like mentioned, laws can vary country to country, state to state. Just use Google, read reviews, find out who's good in your area and start there. So yes, I might sound like a broken record, but I just want to be very clear that like it is a scary thing, but it is just a conversation about wills and future planning, and if you want to go ahead and put in the bigger steps, then do as I just said in my little ramble there trying to explain it. And on that note, if you want to find out more about Jermaine or HeirLight, I will put the links and stuff down below in the description and on the screen. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a like, subscribe, share it with someone who loves to avoid life admin, help bring clarity to the people that you love. You can also leave a comment down below. You can get in contact with me at cripplecchroniclespod@gmail.com if you have a story that you would like to share and have a conversation about on the podcast. I would love to hear from you. But yeah, that is it for today. There will be another episode coming in a few weeks' time. Look after yourselves, be safe, and I will speak to you soon. Goodbye.